What's good, y'all? It's Lucky. I wanted to share a story with y'all about how I made six figures before getting out of high school. First things first, though, I'm not selling a fucking course. I'm not some douche on the internet who's giving his tedious morning routine or giving stupid financial advice. I'm just a shithead like anyone else. I just want to share a story with you and reminisce on old days. Maybe even give a little advice and inspiration along the way. So let's get started. The year is 2011 and my entrepreneurial endeavors have just begun. I was kicked out of high school freshman year for selling weed. I was in a real deal conservative area, so any chance of being able to return to school was a big no-no, unless your parents were like rich enough to sponsor the high school football team or some shit. But that's a story for another day. I ended up making the switch to online school and had a lot of time on my hands. I quickly saw I could finish an 8-hour school day in a bit under 2 hours thanks to Google. We didn't have ChatGPT in those days. I found myself having a lot of time on my hands, so naturally, I decided to look for a job. I was always insecure about not having money. I shouldn't call myself poor because I was rich in other ways. I had health, family, shelter, no shortage of good people around me. But I had no money though. Perhaps at times to my detriment, paper chasing's always been a major priority of mine, hence the reason I sold weed. But another opportunity was presented to me. Our neighbor, who also happened to be from the same country as us, had a business selling home remodeling. One day I'm at his son's house, just hanging out. He offers me a job. I was like, fuck it, why not? I really didn't know what it was going to be like, but I was just desperate to make some paper. He hands me a script and says learn it and show up to training next week. Fast forward a week and I'm in that bitch training. I learned the script and was paired up with a trainer named John. He was like 6-7 years older than me, and he was real cool. He told us we'd be going door to door to set appointments with people to get quotes on remodeling. If a salesman ended up selling the job, we'd get a small cut for setting it up. He gave us some tips and pointers, and we'd get out there and watch him do it a few times with ease. Then came my turn. I had crippling shyness for all my life up to this point. I was very insecure as a kid to the point where I'd start crying if I had to socialize. In this moment, I thought to myself, what the fuck did I just get into? So I get to the first door and I'm trying to play it cool, like, okay, it's probably gonna be some little old lady that's gonna answer the door and I can just say my lines. Nah. As I open the door, a beautiful 10 out of 10 opens the door and I just froze. I'm literally feeling the sweat drip down my back and my forehead on this cold winter morning. I'm stuttering, I'm struggling through my lines to the point where she asked me if I was okay. I died inside. She respectfully declined and I did the walk of shame back to the street. I wanted to cry. This shit wasn't for me. But something inside me changed. I didn't like losing. All those years of watching Rock Lee on Naruto suddenly came to the front of my mind. I had to keep going. I was too stubborn to quit. So the first couple weeks sucked, but eventually I started getting decent. I'm only giving my lines and setting appointments if they want a quote. Eventually, one of my appointments turned into a sale, which I got 1% on. That was like $120. I was like, holy shit, I gotta keep grinding. Fast forward a few months and I'm making decent money. I'm making like working fast food, 40 hours a week type of money. So, not great, but great for me. My boss eventually put me in charge of the door-to-door team and asked if I wanted to be one of those guys who goes in the home to sell the job. He said I'd get 10% of every sale. I told him, hell yeah. Now the real work began. I had to learn a 90-minute sales pitch from top to bottom. I went in head first. I took the sales pitch DVD and hand-wrote the entire pitch over and over again for 3 weeks. I even memorized the corny jokes that like the 50-year-old sales guy in the video would tell the customers. I studied this shit like religion. I started reading a lot of books by Zig Ziglar and Dale Carnegie. Now it was time for my first appointment. I went into the house accompanied by my boss and I did my pitch. I was nervous as fuck, but I hit all my points. The people were a young country couple with kids. I was maybe like 6-7 years older than their kids, and they really liked me. After some negotiation and a little bit of input from my boss, we managed to close the deal. We closed for $8,000, of which I got $800. That was really like my holy shit moment. I had never seen that type of money before at one time in my life. I went home feeling great. My very next appointment, my boss was confident enough in me to let me go alone. It was an old couple in bumfuck nowhere, and I get there and end up spending like 3 hours there. They like my products, they like me as well. I was chopping it up with them like they're my grandparents. At the end of the pitch, I did the math and I started to give them the price. My heart sank when I saw what it came out to. $25,000. I was terrified to present this to them. Not because I thought they'd say no, which they probably would, but because I couldn't fathom a human being could spend this much money on one thing ever. I thought they'd be insulted and beat me over the head with their canes, but I handed it over anyway. They took a long, hard look at it. And they said yes. What? Did I hear that shit correctly? You said yes? They were like, how do you want to get paid? I was like, a check is cool. They wrote me the whole check there, not just the down payment. My mind was blown. Driving home, I realized I had just made $2,500 in 3 hours. I'm only 15 at the time. I wasn't even supposed to be driving alone. But this changed my perspective on money and the opportunity I had before me. Like, I just made what my dad would take a month to make. So I just doubled down and devoted everything in my being to being the best salesman I could possibly be. I let school fall to the wayside, but that's a story for another day. I read every book on sales I could possibly find. And The Wolf of Wall Street just came out, so I was extra hyped. Yeah, that crippling shy kid I once was starting to dissipate as time went on. I would even go out of my way to start up conversations in public to hone my skills. It wasn't without its learning curve, though. I was kicked out of plenty of homes, too. I definitely did not pick up on social cues naturally, as some people do. I was sort of like an autistic robot that needed programmed responses in order to function. But with every appointment, sale or no sale, I was feeding my algorithm. 2 years passed by and I was the #1 salesman in the company, even surpassing my boss. I broke sales records and I was feeling myself. I was making 6 figures while all my friends were working at like Chick-fil-A and shit. I lived and breathed being a salesman. Honestly, looking back, I was fucking insufferable. I fell into the whole red pill alpha male bullshit that was like kind of just starting on the internet, like years before guys like Andrew Tate would make it like mainstream. And it would be years until I realized how much of a douche I was and be actually able to form genuine connections with people. Because despite my success in closing deals, I had zero riz, and as you young whippersnappers like to call it, the huzz were not feeling me. I eventually spiraled into drugs and alcohol, and my work would suffer because of it. Overall, I was pretty unhappy. After I graduated, I got clean and worked in sales for like another 2 years, pretty much like maintaining that 6-figure mark. I eventually lost interest in sales as a profession though. The thought of having a smile up in people's face and hope and pray that they would be kind enough to give me their money was just something I got tired of. I never wanted to be a salesman. I had other dreams and eventually got an opportunity to work in the industry I wanted to be in. So I sort of up and left the company to pursue that. I didn't leave on a bad note. Me and my old boss, we still keep in touch. We're cool, but I definitely hit them boys with an Irish goodbye when I dipped. Even though, like, I can't stand the thought of doing this shit today, being in sales has changed my life for the better in a ton of ways. I learned a lot about what makes people tick, how they communicate, what's important to people, how people spend money and their justifications behind it. I also learned the importance of discipline and hard work as a freelancer for the first time. Something I never stopped using even in my career today. Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. If you're a reserved person who wants to like expand your social horizons and shit, or even just a guy that wants to make a little bread while they're young, I can't think of a better thing than sales. Despite my humble upbringing, I'm grateful that someone saw something in me and decided to nourish it and give me a chance to grow. Shit, that's pretty much it for today. I hope you got something from it. Thanks for watching.